My name is David Swift. I'm the VP of Product Marketing at SightCall, and we have a lot of really great content here for you today, kind of describing the state of AI, what's happening in field service specifically, some of the pitfalls, the value to be added, and just some great next steps, I think, in terms of maturity and where to go. So, to start off, I think everyone is talking about how AI uses data, right, to make its predictions, to make its decisions. But what is the right AI data? And we at SightCall really believe it's the real world frontline experience and expertise that your experts hold, and when they're solving problems. So how do we get access to that data? How do we capture that tacit knowledge that exists? So at SightCall, we have this concept called the service gap, and we believe and have shown with customers and through a lot of research that that service gap is in essence a knowledge gap. And what that knowledge gap is there's a breakup of around 20% of the knowledge today that we have is more of like this kind of implicit knowledge rather than tacit knowledge. And the tacit knowledge is that 80%. And that tacit knowledge is the expertise and experience-based knowledge that is not being documented today in field service. Rather, you have this static knowledge that is in the form of PDFs, SharePoints, and it can't really keep pace with the real world field conditions. And as I think we all know, in field service, you come across things that aren't really in the manual. So within this concept, right, we have actually found that as a service gap at a glance that $30 billion is lost every single year due to knowledge loss. And that really isn't acceptable anymore, especially when we know today that the future of business is going to be a hybrid approach with AI working with humans to solve some of the most complex problems, right? And at SightCall, we really believe in this centaur-like approach where we augment the human to solve those complex problems. And if we don't have that knowledge to support that problem solving, we're going to get stuck. And so organizations must preserve the insight from a lot of this retiring workforce. And at a glance here, 46% of North America's field techs are actually 50 plus years old, right? And 50% of the techs in the European region are 50 plus. And when we think about that, there's going to be what we call, and what has been referenced in the past, a silver tsunami, where there's a retiring workforce and that expertise is disappearing with retirement. So what do we do? Well, what we know is there are some barriers today in AI in field service. Artificial intelligence, right? It lacks, there's some limitations, right? It struggles due to lacking usable structured knowledge. Now, when we think about a large language model, right? A large language model absolutely is trained on vast amounts of unstructured knowledge and data. And this unstructured data could be in the form of documents, emails, manuals, chats. And this is the language understanding, the synthesis, and the associations that it's able to bring, and why you can have those what seem to be very insightful conversations with ChatGPT, say. But where unstructured knowledge breaks down is in this B2B world and B2B context, right? For precise action-oriented tasks, like answering what the correct calibration or torque of a machine is, or which firmware patch fixes this sensor issue. Unstructured text really isn't enough. Instead, you're going to suffer from ambiguity, incompleteness, lack of standardization, and no grounding in some of these answers. And that's what we would reference as an AI hallucination. And it becomes a real problem in the B2B space, especially when we're looking at these complex pieces of equipment that take a lot of tacit knowledge to fix. I mean, imagine like maybe you have an old piece of equipment and you read the manual, but the real fix is you hit it 3 times on one side and slap it on the left and boom, it starts working. Well, that tacit expertise is not found in the manual. So the role of structured data and structured knowledge, think like product database or service catalogs, and in the case of SightCall, those in the moment of service interactions, right? Remote visual support is what we offer at SightCall, acts as a source of truth. And when that's paired with the AI today and large language model, it provides precision, it provides traceability. Every answer can point back to a record, and consistency, avoiding some contradictory instructions across teams or products. So, in other words, structured knowledge doesn't replace large language models, rather, it's going to anchor them. So, uh, we are capturing and reusing this frontline expertise in real time. Like that is the next stage of evolution within AI, thinking about, hey, we can't just push all of our documentation, all of our recordings into one place and expect something to happen. Rather, what do we do with that in the moment of service expertise? And how do we structure it to make that precision within the answers that an AI gives? So capturing value now, and I think this is important because what we have found in AI that there's a lot of kind of a rate of failure or not realization of ROI within an AI project in the B2B enterprise space right now. A lot of folks are investing in it. A lot of folks are very much interested in what it can do, but how do you prove out that value? Now, I alluded to this a little bit earlier about explicit. I actually might have called it implicit. I meant to say explicit knowledge as 20% of that data and knowledge. But the real meat of it is 80% of the knowledge within your organization is tacit knowledge, right? Learned by doing and often passed much more informally. So how do you capture that? And what technicians in the field service space need is they need that contextual learning, not that static documentation. So if AI can provide the context in the moment of service, they not only can solve the problem, but they'll actually learn more, right? And learn by doing, because that's what tacit knowledge is. It's learned by doing and it's passed on. So let's give that knowledge to AI to support and augment our field service interactions. Now, in terms of the ROI and the cost of not giving AI better knowledge, for those of you who like math, we've come up with this formula at SightCall to represent what inaction can really cost in terms of operational losses. Think about the key metrics, right, that exist today, and maybe we'll drop a survey question in about these key metrics. But the idea of repeat visits as a KPI, right? Inefficiency measurements. You can think about churn risk. All of these things impact, and they're like leading variables in understanding the cost to provide service, as well as the cost to not realizing more revenue in terms of a value impact of a service line item, right? So waiting to modernize knowledge capture will actually increase cost over time, because if you are not capturing that tacit expertise today, I mean, think about, just simply put, one repeat visit, right? Because a technician didn't solve the problem when they arrived the first time. So you don't have your first time fix rate, or you weren't able to solve it through your level 1 support agent and had to send a technician on site, when maybe you could have solved that if your level 1 support agent had access to that tacit expertise. I mean, alone, that's around $2.4 million annually in cost, right, of repeat visits for a company, right? So thinking about this level of cost, it seems, yes, AI should in fact fix this problem, and we should get an ROI out of it. But why aren't we, right? So what I like to do here is kind of present to you a framework, right? A framework of, pilot projects to scalable strategies, and where a company sits in terms of their maturity on this journey of capturing that tacit expertise and using it as a way to augment their service workforce. So when we think about shifting uh, at SightCall, we talk about shifting to visual intelligence. And the reason why we bring up visual intelligence is because oftentimes knowledge might be in text format, but at SightCall we believe, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And in regards to data and AI, well, a picture in fact could be worth 1,000 words, and words are what LLMs are able to process and understand. So that many more words, but in an accurate context, are super, super valuable to the future of artificial intelligence. So, from I think early 2000s in consultancy, the people, technology, and process model still resonates, right? And those three lanes have paramount importance in driving a visual intelligence framework and maturity. And we have these five different categories of stage, right? The initial stage is collaboration and adoption of a uh, visual support, visual assistance tool, where you have that live technical support and real time guidance to solve a problem, right? Remotely, in collaboration within that environment is actually that tacit exchange of knowledge, right? And to approach that, you need the technology like SightCall, a remote visual support platform, and AR guidance toolkits where you can help guide someone towards that solution. And in terms of process, right, that's everyone is contributing to knowledge by sharing knowledge in the moment of service. And that could be to a technician on site or even to a customer who's dealing with a problem. Now, the next phase is to capture that. And that's capturing the visual session using a process to define the knowledge that needs to be captured, and using a technology that will contextualize the tagging automatically, right, of that interaction, right? All the metadata, as well as just any kind of notes and tagging that would be part of any activity that takes place in that interaction. And from there, you have a ton of important uh, insight, right, and data to create the visual intelligence, the true visual intelligence out of that interaction. And that's where you can start building how-to tutorials using AI, right? An AI-driven multimedia knowledge type of pipeline. And that's what we actually offer at SightCall through our expert knowledge solution. And standardizing that format into how-to visual guides and multimedia guides is really what many, many, many people are looking for today, instead of just a text-based answer. So now you can imagine that the creation of knowledge has become multimedia and not just text-based. So you could have video snippets of how to do something in the moment of service for a very specific problem. And that is that distinction of structured knowledge versus the unstructured knowledge. And then from there, you have this curation where you have the human in the loop, right? Making sure that this knowledge is validated, and then diffusing that knowledge to whether it's another technician, to a support agent, or even to customers to actually solve these problems. So in terms of some insights here, right, you can find that, and this was a recent survey by the Service Council, and I feel like this is very insightful to what's happening in the AI space in B2B, is service leaders want their AI projects to increase revenue, with 41% claiming it's necessary, but only 10% today have observed true improvement. Yet there's a mass investment and push. So how do you extract that value? Well, you really do need to approach it from this intelligence framework, and happy to provide any consultation around this for those who are here, and set up some time and some demos with us, and we can really step through this framework and the people, technology, and process, and how you can push to this diffusion point where that multimedia uh, tacit knowledge is actually being leveraged by your human teams and agentic AI teams simultaneously as a way to solve problems faster and with less error. Okay. So, another important component here within the field service space is that there's actually this idea that the green hire, right, the folks that are coming on board right now, they're actually not sticking around as long. So you actually have a lot more attrition. And so when you actually lose a technician today, even an expert technician that might be retiring, or even an expert technician that you spent time training for over 2 years, that's a $250,000 investment that goes down the drain. So what are leaders trying to do today is, well, training should evolve into a living visual knowledge ecosystem, right? So what that means is that if we're able to capture and curate those interactions of service that experts give, you're able to package that up and share it with any of the green hires, onboard them faster, improve their time to proficiency, right? And create a much better tool set to empower folks to become the true experts that they are. So I've said this a couple times, this idea of in the moment of service knowledge. And what we've actually found with solutions and with customers in terms of remote visual intelligence and taking that contextual multimedia insight and turning it into knowledge that can be leveraged by team members and agentic systems is that you have a faster onboarding, up to 50% faster onboarding, way lower support costs, because you're empowering even your tier one workforce to operate as if they're the top performing expert. And then you have a higher first time fix rate, which is a key metric across field service today, right? Because you're giving these folks the ability to operate like your experts that are retiring by giving them that multimedia context to solve a problem for your products, right? And so making knowledge a living system that powers people and AI is really the future. And for companies that are looking to get ahead and provide the best possible service outcomes, you got to start now and move beyond just the static capture and creation of knowledge, where now it becomes dynamic system where you're using tools like remote visual assistants right at the beginning to interact and capture and record those interactions as a very important step in knowledge to build out your pipeline for a future of multimedia, multimodal operational excellence in AI. Okay, so in terms of like folks to talk to at SightCall, just want to offer everybody these contact information. We have Jake and Tyler, who are key supporters of the sales efforts and kind of can walk you through this maturity journey and assess and discover where you stand today and with remote visual assistance and where you can go, right? And create this consultative discussion with you all. You can also book a meeting at that link below and just get a meeting on the calendar today. I hope this was insightful and gave you some information about where you can go with multimedia knowledge and the future of AI.